So we are episode 42. This is Badass Records podcast. Hanging with Kadesh Flow. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Good. Thank you. So tell me again the name of the band you're going to catch at the ship tonight.
Sunu. They're based out of Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
And they do a lot of Afro-Cuban, Afro-beat inspired music.
Cool.
It's also really funky, banging horn section.
Nice.
Auxiliary percussion.
Wild. What's auxiliary percussion?
As far as just like, congas.
Cool.
That whole get up. Like a lot of South American and African drumming, and the primary songwriter from the band, Dylan, I think his last name is Bassett, Dylan Bassett, I think.
Okay.
He studied heavily in South American Africa, like among both tribes and city cultures, percussion and whatnot. Cool. So he's very well versed and all that good stuff.
Nice. I met you down at the ship a few months ago. Casey Green, I think there was a Casey Green gig, but then were you supposed to be part of that gig the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay. But was there somebody from New York?
Oh yeah.
I remember somebody being like the rapper from New York, somebody from New York who just happened to be in town and then got on stage with you guys, or?
I think are you sure you're not talking about Brass and Bougie? Was it not
positive?
It was a Casey Green gig, and somebody from New York came in.
I thought. I mean, you were to me, you were the primary front figure, but I thought there was somebody else that got up there and did some stuff.
I don't remember.
Okay, well, it's been a minute. So, but how do you? I mean, so do you gig with Casey Green every time they gig?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I won't say every time because sometimes I have to miss stuff for just things that I have as a solo artist and band leader that conflict with them, or I'll be out of town. But for the most part, if I'm available and they have a gig, I play with them.
Nice.
Definitely the main trombone player.
Yeah. The only trombone player, right?
Yeah. Every so often, Brad will have somebody like Trevor Turla sub for me.
Okay.
Trevor's phenomenal.
Sure.
But for the most part, if I don't do the gig, they don't have a trombone player.
Right. And his other outfit's name is escaping me right now.
Trevor's?
No, Brad's.
Brad's other outfit is
Tiki Brawlers.
Yes.
Do you ever?
Yeah, I'm also the trombonist for that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. So with those two, and then you have solo stuff that you live performances, stuff available. Right? How much gigging do you do solo?
Oh, most of it is. I won't say solo, but me as a band leader. Most of my gigging is me as a band leader, which is what I wanted to build towards when I used to be in fintech and music was a side thing, and I wanted it to be a main thing, but I didn't want to just be a trombone sideman.
Sure,
I didn't leave a financial tech trajectory to, be a I left to be an artist.
Yeah.
And to travel the world and eventually haven't quite gotten there yet. Sell out theaters.
Sure.
I've sold out a couple things, but nice. They weren't theaters.
So are you on planes a lot? Are you on the road? Is it a mix?
Okay. Yeah, it's a mix. Yeah. So I'm gigging on average probably 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
And most of that is projects I lead or co-lead.
Cool.
So as Kadesh Flow, as you know, I play in Casey Green. I play in Tiki Brawlers. Tiki Brawlers hasn't been quite as active, nearly as active, really.
Buckner did. Where did he do? He did a episode. 20 plus episodes ago, and I don't think. Well, and that would have been near around the time that I saw you, saw that show, and I don't know that they've had a gig since. If they have, I haven't seen it.
We haven't.
Okay. Sorry, I keep saying they. You guys. So your stuff, Bandcamp, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Instagram,
TikTok, all of
TikTok.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All the streaming platforms.
Cool.
iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play. Well, there's Kadesh Flow stuff I do as a solo rapper. I have a group That's an extension of myself called the Desh Tet. That's any assortment of people, but I just did the first Desh Tet duo set last night, literally ever.
Where?
At the Pairing, KC.
Where's that?
Wine and liquor store on the Crossroads. They have a bar in the back.
Okay.
And they do live music. Really cool room, great sound.
That sounds cool.
Did a duo set, just me and Vincent Orsolini on piano.
Okay.
Playing trombone and rapping. So duo, trio, quartet, quintet, sextet. I've done all of those.
Nice.
Under my name. I co-front Brass and Bougie, which is an 18-piece big band led by Marcus Lewis, who was Janelle Monáe's trombone player, and before that was with the Ohio Players, and he's played with Prince and Bruno Mars and Aretha Franklin and all these people. So I co-front that with Kemet Coleman as rappers, fronting a big band, which is a concept that didn't really happen consistently anywhere before we started doing it. And I also play trombone in the Fantastics, which Kemet Coleman fronts.
Do you have a person to help you keep track of all this stuff?
No, I need one. I'm almost at the point where I can afford to hire an assistant.
Really?
Not quite there yet.
Okay.
I have some financial things I need to take care of before I do that, I should say. I co-front Deshika Rage, which is a joint project with Jessica Page, who's a phenomenal singer-songwriter, and myself. We share a band. And I co-front Splat with 2 T's, which is a duo of Trevor Turla and myself, double trombone fronted.
Oh, cool.
Band, and it's crazy.
But on this 18-piece thing, like, how, if you're the go-to person for that, I mean, how do you get 18 people to show and have their stuff together and all, you know what I'm saying?
Marcus is the leader of that.
Okay.
So Marcus does all the cat herding there. We help sometimes. Kim and I help with certain things. But it's a lot. It's a lot. And sometimes, like, we just did a Halloween party at Crane Brewing, Brass and Bougie.
Nice.
And we had a whole, like, all hands on deck situation because we were having trouble finding a drummer. And
because your regular drummer wasn't available, or
I think he committed and then realized he couldn't do it.
Oh, dang.
And that's a horrible weekend for that to happen because it was Halloween weekend.
Yeah,
that's like one of the busiest weekends for a gigging musician. So it can be crazy sometimes, but fortunately Marcus does most of the legwork on that.
Okay. So for all of these streaming and social media platforms, are you running them yourself?
Or co-running them.
Okay.
Yeah. So Brass and Bougie comes on the Marcus. So if you would find that our stuff under the Marcus Lewis Big Band and his socials, even though we all share things and whatnot. Fantastics is Kemet. Kemet runs Fantastics. Everything else I either run or co-run. Deshika Rage is Jessica and I tag teaming. Splat is Trevor and I tag teaming. All the Kadesh Flow stuff and Desh Tet stuff is me.
And do you have one of those platforms where if you like post on one, it puts it on all of them?
I used to, but it's more effective to have things personalized.
Totally.
So I have things like what I was saying before we started this conversation on the microphones. Like today is a content planning day.
Oh yeah.
So it's as much as it would be easier to just post and have something fire off on everything. They're all individual things, so it makes more sense to batch
100%.
content and. I'll chop up 30-second clips, but I'm literally in the middle of a restructure that I started last week to give myself to allocate more time towards content batching and content planning.
So this is a new thing on the calendar, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did it. I always did it, but it was always something I did between things where really I need to schedule more of my life around that so that I can grow that as much as everything else is growing.
Yep. I thought that getting folks scheduled and doing interviews and then the editing, like once I had a handle on that, I thought that was the whole pie. Nope, because I mean I want to put clips on TikTok, I want to post, make Instagram posts, tweet, et cetera, et cetera. It's like I was just kind of getting to it, and now it's kind of like, no, I gotta compartmentalize a little bit more and have some consistency, just because I think that's the right thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Especially, it's the best thing to do algorithmically if you're trying to grow anything. Consistency is going to get rewarded, especially on YouTube. YouTube's algorithms are brutal, and
meaning,
I I'm dealing with a thing right now where I'm uploading again and I'm getting way less engagement because I took a 7-month break.
Oh.
And everything's being pushed down because YouTube thinks that nobody's interested in my channel anymore.
Yeah, I'm. So if we're doing 42 today, I think I've just started on episode 14.
As far as editing?
As far as no. 38 or 39 are up.
Okay.
I got a couple banked, thankfully. Sometimes it doesn't work like that, and I'm in a pinch, and I got to turn around and get it out the same week that I record, which makes for a lot of late nights. But no, I'm just working on up to episode 14 as far as TikToks.
Oh yeah.
And at first it was like crickets, and I was like, oh, probably because I just fired up 6 and then did nothing, and then fired up 6, and then I started doing. I saw a thing that was like you should do 2 to 3 or 5 a day, and I was like, no. But I'm finding out that if I do a cup, 2 or 3 Tuesday through Thursday, that seems to be the consistent drip that the algorithm, because like it seems like people kind of check out on the weekends, at least as I don't know. That so far that's what I'm seeing. And Monday it feels like people are slow to get back into getting their fix. But what do you have the same handle on your all your solo socials or?
Yeah, it's a similar thing. I don't. You're at an advantage because these are really long form things, so you can chop up. You could probably get like 130-second different 30-second clips per episode.
Do you think 30 seconds is a better way to go than like 3 minutes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So like, especially for Instagram and TikTok, like,
right.
Like you could do a minute or you could do multiple minutes, but the 30-second thing, it's efficient, it's good for attention spans, and it gives you more editing room.
Sadly, good for attention spans.
Yeah, sadly.
Because the only reason, my YouTube view counts are just, teeny tiny. So since that's long form, I thought doing a 2 to 3 minute TikToks, would solve that. But it's nope. I think you're right. You really got to hit that 30-second wheelhouse too to catch all the attention spans out there. But
yeah, it's not, and having like a longer one isn't bad, but the 30-second thing is really good. And having like YouTube is still like the best base to get things from because it's the only platform where long form content is rewarded consistently, and then you can take that and chop it up. Right. But yeah, I have all this stuff and all these strategies that I know, and it's just haven't had the bandwidth to do them because I've been performing so much, doing prep, and I record a lot. I write a lot of music, and I had a gut check situation a couple weeks ago where I have friends who are very successful YouTubers, friends and acquaintances who are very successful YouTubers on like a nerdy hip hop piece, which is what I do, mostly what I do.
Okay.
And some of them know me because they were listening to me when I was doing it, when there were very few people doing it. Right. And when I was in college in like 2012, 2013, but then I finished my MBA, entered corporate America, and I chose to build a live performance presence over the YouTube thing, and it just wasn't possible to build both those and not get fired.
Right, yeah, of course.
But I really, really worked on building a national presence in like conventions and whatnot. And some of these guys chose really to do YouTube and are doing extraordinarily well right now.
Okay.
And I'm already a successful working musician, but I pivoted back into the content space during the peak pandemic.
Sure.
And I had a gut check because I was on Twitter like publicly irritated that my views were getting pushed down so hard when I have like 10.5K subscribers.
Oh, do you really? Okay.
And that's not like, and the friends I'm referring to literally have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, right? So one of them jumped in and he was like, that's because you upload so infrequently. Even for like highly successful channels, we'll have something get pushed down because we upload something that it doesn't hit as hard, and then the YouTube will tank the rest of our stuff.
That's just that your stuff is D+, and so
yeah.
oh man.
Yeah, and this person I don't think this person is aware of the fact that I was like taking 15 hours of 500 level classes at one point in time and uploading every week. But he was like, you just got to find a way to do it if you're trying to do it. And it's not like he doesn't respect what I'm doing. He knows what I do. But it was a really, that interaction among a bunch of other stuff that's happening in the quote unquote anime rap community at the time was really kind of a kick in the pants for me. And I was like, yeah, what do I really want right now to grow? Because this is the most successful year I've had as an artist.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I am right at the salary and bonuses I was making in fintech as a full-time artist.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Good for you.
And I don't ever want to look back in November of 2023 and be in the exact same place I am now.
You want to see constant or consistent,
Yeah, I just want to grow. I'm hungry. And it was a gut check because it really made me sit down and ask what I really wanted and how I want to grow. So then I restructured my life, restructured how my time works.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how many things, let's call it 30 things that you have just in your creator artist, writing, recording, live performances, content, etc. I mean, are you able to maintain somewhat consistent bedtime and wake time? Or are you all over the place? Or
it's so all over the place. I'm working on that too. And honestly, the bigger thing with that is partying too much in the midst of all the things. That's something last week was the first time I clamped down on that in months.
Well, when we were texting and you said you recalled our one conversation, I think, from after that show, and saying, I seem to remember that these can go long. And I was like, is he sober? Like, how the hell does he remember? Maybe it was in the text thread, but I was thinking you were just taking that from memory. I was like, wow, that's impressive.
It was from memory. Yeah.
Okay. So clamping down is already showing payoff, I guess.
Yeah, a little. I mean, there's a lot that's really good about this week.
Okay.
And actually, the restructure. There's some things notes I've taken that I'm going to improve upon, but I don't necessarily have a problem with my lifestyle right now. I definitely could drink less. I could eat better. I drink a lot of water. I listen to my body. I'm in my early 30s. It's not like, I'm not super worried about it, but from like a lifestyle standpoint, except that I need more money to invest in my art.
Yeah.
That I might be spending on something, and I need to be able to wake up with clarity and get more out of myself every day.
I gotta imagine that with all the outfits that you're part of, live perform, all the people that you interact with, you got to see a wide range of lifestyles. People that you're like, that person might not be around next week, to all the way down to somebody that is sober and healthy eating and exercise. I mean, you see it a big span, or
exactly, literally, especially when I was first starting out in the hip hop scene here, and I'd play with people or be on stages with people, and they were opening for somebody huge who is, Kansas City is off market, and I'd be at venues where people would have good relationships from when they were on the road, and get somebody to come to, a smaller venue in Kansas City as compared to a theater or an arena or whatever. And when I was playing really fraternity heavy bars when I was in college in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, I saw like so much cocaine.
No, I bet.
So much. And most of the druggy things haven't really ever been of interest to me, but there have definitely been, I've seen some people where I'm like, is this dude gonna wake up?
Right.
Where I'm like just checking pulses and stuff. I'm like, all right, well, we're still here. I'm gonna, I guess, go grab another drink and
right.
Hope you don't leave us.
Hang in there, buddy.
Down to people who don't do anything.
Right.
So yeah, totally.
You mentioned hip hop anime a second ago, or did I screw that up? Or
Well, it's anime inspired hip hop.
Anime inspired hip hop,
or video game inspired hip hop,
Okay.
tech and sci-fi inspired hip hop. I have a buddy who's a hacker who really works at InfoSec, and he's also a hacker rapper. And I do shows with him at hacker conventions where a lot of his wordplay is on security terminology worked into rap. So like,
wow,
the general term for that is nerdcore.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds heavy in the nerd lane. Yeah, whichever. But in looking at your stuff, couple fascinating terms, weeb.
Yeah.
And when I say fascinating, typically I'm talking about something that I had to look up the definition of. So, derisive term for non-Japanese person so obsessed with Japanese culture that they wish they actually were Japanese. I don't know if that was, what do you call that? That was the definition that I found.
Yeah, and a lot of the times where you see somebody like me use it, it's a little bit watered down, because otaku is also the initial definition is kind of derogatory.
Okay.
But yeah, like, I don't wish I was Japanese.
You're just into a lot of elements of Japanese culture.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super Saiyan.
Super Saiyan.
Saiyan. Wow.
Yeah, Super Saiyan. That is a legendary warrior from the Dragon Ball universe. Came about in Dragon Ball Z. Still exists in Dragon Ball Super. So there are different types of Super Saiyans in that universe, but for a while there was just like nobody had ascended to the level of Super Saiyan in thousands of years. So when I say I'm a trombone Super Saiyan, it's kind of saying that, I'm like this, I'm that guy on trombone sort of thing. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I looked up Saiyan. An advanced transformation utilized by members and hybrids of the Saiyan race that have sufficient amounts of S cells in the Dragon Ball franchise. And then Saiyan's a race of extraterrestrials in the Dragon Ball anime and manga. And its adaptive sequels, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super. And after all of that, you remember double rainbow all the way? What does it all mean? I finished writing down those definitions, and I was like, I just have more words than I started with, but I think my level of confusion is. But no, I'm kidding. I think I understand it all. But BA and MBA from University of Alabama. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Landstuhl, Germany, because my parents were military.
Okay.
But I spent 3 years in Europe, mostly in Germany, and then 3 years in California. My parents got divorced, and they both left the military. And my mom's from Alabama. My dad's from Texas, but he went and played college football in Georgia.
Okay.
At Albany State. And my mom moved with me back to the Mobile area in Alabama.
Okay.
Technically, Bay Minette. Or Spanish for it, which is where I went to school. But yeah.
Are they? How old were you when they split?
5.
5. Okay.
And they left the military a little after that.
So basically, from 5 on, you're living with mom.
Yeah.
And did she put music on in the house?
No, that was mostly dad. Dad. A lot of my organization, which isn't incredible, but the little organization that I have and my kind of even keel demeanor is my mom, also my temper that I've had to figure out how to manage, and then a lot of my drive, ambition, extroversion, and musical interest is from my dad.
Okay.
Dad always we'd go on road trips and he'd play all sorts of music.
Do you have siblings?
I do. That came way later though. I have a 17-year-old brother.
Okay.
I'm 33.
Okay.
So, my mom remarried.
Right. So are you still close with both mom and dad?
Yep.
And do they communicate at all, or are they chill?
Not so much anymore.
Right.
Not that I'm out of the house.
Right.
Like, she'll ask how he's doing, and he'll say, they'll ask me to tell the other person, hey.
Hello. Yeah.
A lot of the bitterness and whatnot is gone.
Good.
Is long gone.
Good.
Like, they're it is what it is.
Yeah. So what if you're mostly living with mom, but she's not playing music? Like, what are some of your earliest musical memories? I mean, where are you hearing stuff? Or
this is a bit traumatic.
Okay.
But it also, there's an endearing bit to it now. Really, one of the earliest musical memories I have is my mom coming home, and my dad was already home, and this is when they were fighting. This was like pre-split, but it was gonna happen.
So you're teeny.
Yeah. I think I was 4 when this happened. Dad was playing. Dad knew mom was coming home, and he had "If You Think You're Lonely Now" by Bobby Womack playing.
Okay.
And my mom walked in and heard it and looked at my dad and was like, "What are you trying to say?"
Welcome home.
And it turned into this gigantic argument. And you know, me processing that turned me into a Bobby Womack fan. And
Okay.
I still play that song.
Nice.
You know, a lot. I'll have that song on repeat sometimes.
Okay.
Because it takes me through an entire range of emotions.
I bet. What about when you start, like, when you get a little bit older? Are you hanging with buddies? Are you hearing music at friends' houses or school, movies? What?
Yeah. So this is lightened up on all parts of the spectrum. But I grew up very, very fundamentalist Christian.
Oh, okay.
Almost to an extreme degree. And you know, my dad's still in ministry. I still consider myself a person of faith, even though I'm definitely not fundamentalist.
Is there a one-line screenshotty kind of definition because I don't know if I know what a fundamentalist Christian is.
Bible by the letter, 100%. Really, almost legalistically going by what's sin and not sin.
Okay.
And so where this is important to your question is, my dad, while heavily in ministry, had no problem with playing a lot of, you know, all the music. On my mom's end, I wasn't supposed to listen to secular music. But because I was a band kid, like, it was just unavoidable. So
Secular
I was exposed
music.
to certain things. Yeah.
What a term.
Yeah. Wild, right? It's really wild. I've had to really go through a lot of deconstructions, especially as a musician, trying to educate myself on music. Because I know people who would consider themselves Christian rappers who listen to the whole spectrum of music.
Sure.
And so there's a lot that I missed when I was in undergrad and grad school, especially when I realized that I wanted to be, even though I wasn't sure if I was trying to be a full-time, like, artist be my job, or being an artist as a vocation. I knew I wanted to do music for the rest of my life some kind of way, and I started just like gradually educating myself on all these things. Part of I consider myself a bit of a late bloomer, whereas, you know, a lot of people really start, who are successful hip hop artists. They've started making airwaves in their early 20s, if not their late teens,
Sure.
to their mid 20s. And then you find out that they've actually been trying to figure out how to do that since they were like 12, right?
Okay, yeah.
Whereas I didn't start taking the work seriously to be an artist until I was 25. And part of that is because my music exposure was a bit limited. And so there's a lot that I missed developmentally on all sides of the field except for jazz.
Okay.
Because I was in band and in jazz band and studying, you know, great trombonists and whatnot.
Sure.
Does all that make sense?
Yeah, it makes 100% sense. And it's sort of like, you know, I kind of was just listening to oldies and then classic rock, and then had a big dip in the rap and hip hop waters, and then was kind of out of that for a little bit, exploring a bunch of other stuff, eventually coming back to it. And now it's like, you know, it's part of the fabric. It's not a huge, but it makes me wonder about, I mean, so like, if I'm, I don't know, 13, 14, listening to Easy, NWA, Two Live Crew, Too Short, all this stuff. There were definitely a couple concrete moments where I was kind of like, I know that I'm not supposed to be listening to it. Like if my mom knew what I was listening to, she'd be like, no. But like, if I'm in charge of myself in the world, should I be listening to this at this age? And then, sort of like if you experiment with drugs or substances before you're developed enough to be. So it makes me think that, perhaps some of the lanes or some of the genres came to you when you're a little bit more developed, which is maybe a good thing, maybe it gives you perspective or a sense of grounding. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I got enough, from my friends who, back when Kazaa and LimeWire were a thing, illegally downloaded like Eminem records.
Right.
So I heard, a good bit of Eminem and a decent amount of Lil Wayne. But it was never on my own. I wasn't able to like actually study it as a rapper, even though I've been rapping since I was 11.
Right. Nice.
But most of what I listened to was quote unquote holy hip hop. So there's just
holy hip hop.
Yeah, there's definitely just almost exclusively Christian rap.
Okay.
And even then I didn't listen to a lot of that. I mostly was listening to jazz because it was safer, or like versions of jazz and whatnot. And I really honestly wasn't really consuming a lot of music.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's crazy because you sounded like the one time I saw you, a pro's pro. I mean, you have a serious charisma and energy. I mean, like the trombone is visible, right?
Yeah.
You can't look at a stage full of dudes or guys and girls and not see the trombone. But I didn't expect you to freestyle. And all of a sudden, I don't even know how you count bars, but it was just like, I guess when I realized that you were doing it, I thought maybe you'd have a couple lines, but it was just like, da 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 da, and I was like, where is this guy from? Like very, very impressive. So
thank you.
I don't know if I would have put it together that you've been doing it since you were 11, because it's hard to imagine the starting point when you're just seeing today's model.
Yeah.
But really, really good stuff, man. And I've talk often. I know some writers like Casey Starr, folks that have written for the Casey Starr, especially in the sports community, have talked over the years about this notion of Kansas City kind of being in a perpetual identity crisis mode, where it's like we know we're not New York, LA, but we want to be considered, on some level, like not a small market, small town, whatever. But it made me feel, I don't know, has Kansas City been home to you for a while now?
Yeah, it'll be 10 years next summer.
Okay, well, it made me feel proud as a Kansas Citian to call you one of our own, even though at the time I didn't know if you actually lived here or not. But
that means a lot. I appreciate
dude,
that.
your stuff is so good. I haven't dug into your content yet, but I absolutely plan to. So you got one sibling way down the line. Was there, by the time you're, for me, it was cutting grass and babysitting, and eventually a job, where I have my own money and I'm buying music. Was there an acquisition or a purchase music wise at any point that was kind of like a first love, or a gut check, or a light bulb, or?
Yeah. So things that were really impactful to me, I could run down the line. Heard an illegal download of Eminem show when I was in 8th grade when it came out. And I just really felt it, I I heard a little bit of Food and Liquor when it came out initially in 2006, but didn't listen to the whole album. I was still in school, and I was also like a really well behaved kid. And I actually, my mom and my former stepfather, because they also ended up splitting after a while. He was an overbearingly strict person on me. And
your mom just let him.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Sure.
She's apologized to me for that sense.
We'll cover all that when you come back.
But because all this affects my music journey, you know, like it's, you know, I would just, you know, be out there like that. But there was a lot that they didn't want me to do, so I didn't do it.
Okay. Good for you. Good for them, I guess, and maybe good for you too.
They're extraordinarily lucky.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because I had my dad in my ear. Basically, I'm positive.
This is Alabama.
Yeah, but my dad was in Georgia. Still.
Okay.
But you know, my dad and I have a really good relationship, and I absolutely would have rebelled and made their lives miserable if my dad hadn't coached me down.
Sure.
To, you know, he's like, it's not, you know, on some, this isn't really worth it.
Was mom aware that was happening?
She has no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, she has no idea. You know, I've told her some things since we've talked, and, you know, we've talked about like that time in my life, and especially the conversation where she apologized for not standing up for me more. But because of all of that, there's just a lot of music that I went back and listened to after it happened, especially in grad school when I started uploading weekly nerdy raps or whatever you want to call them on the YouTube, and realized that like I really, really want to do this. At this point, my band was one of the most popular bands in Tuscaloosa.
Cool.
I'm playing all these packed out shows all the time, and I'm the only guy who's rapping with a band in the city.
Nice.
And just had a really good following there. And I'm like, I actually want to do this some kind of way. I need to educate myself on what's going on to a better degree. And at that point, I was listening to way more music because I was in college. I'm on my own. But actually going back and
another one of those bandwidth adjustments where you make conscious time to be a student, to like you're talking about with content and stuff right now.
And this is a long answer. This to the purchase that was impactful thing. So The Cool came out in 2007, Lupe Fiasco's second studio album. That was like a really strong moment for me because he's such a nerd, and you could just tell in his bars things he raps about, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy, listening to it. And I listened to the Carter 3 when it dropped, and then I'm following albums, right? But then I went back and listened to Food and Liquor fully, and that was a game changer. That whole album was a game changer for me, and how I was writing. Just completely didn't. Seeing somebody have mainstream success that Lupe Fiasco had, and being as much of a nerd openly as he was very big. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, it's 2011. I'm listening to the Carter 4, and so I went to buy it, and a few slots down on the iTunes hip hop charts, there was something that looked like a Final Fantasy VII graphic, and it was in the rap category, and I'm like, what? And this is some guy named Mega Ran, and it was called Black Materia, and it was a Final Fantasy VII inspired rap album.
Sounds like right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, and I had all these secret video game and anime inspired raps that I didn't like let anybody hear. I'm like, nobody wants to hear that. And you know, this dude is like on the iTunes hip hop charts,
written and recorded, and you're the only person that knows about him.
Not always recorded, but definitely written with beats. You know, everything. And seeing that was huge. So I'll go ahead and long story short this for you. Mega Ran's like a mentor and big brother now.
Okay.
I emailed him then.
No way.
And I asked him if he took interns, and little did I know he had just quit his teaching job and was on his first national tour with the guy who goes by MC Chris. Now, like, we have all these songs together. Mega Ran's a hugely successful independent rap artist right now.
Okay.
And you know, he's got a Guinness record for having the most songs about a fandom, or most fandom inspired songs of any rapper, because he has so many Mega Man inspired rap songs.
Nice.
So that Black Materia was massive for me, and that was, and then not long after I heard that, like later that year, I put out a Skyrim inspired rap. And this was right when I had started my MBA. I put out a Skyrim inspired rap and it front paged Reddit. And
it front paged Reddit. Does that mean it appears near the top?
It was on when you open Reddit and see that initial list of stuff.
I mean, I don't know. Every time somebody sends something, it's like, do you want to open it with Chrome or do you want to open it via Reddit? And sometimes the Reddit app has gone to sleep, and so I'll re-download it, and then I get in there, and I was like, I don't know if I'm where I'm supposed to be. It's confusing to me, but I have a lot of newspaper background, so I can picture the concept.
Yeah, that's a little different now because there's so many apps and things now. But then it was like, people were on opening their computers and
it was like
Reddit.com.
What message boards kind of graduated to was Reddit, right? Well, you gave me a super fascinating list. I typically go chronologically by release year, that puts us with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Elton John, 1973. Didn't see that coming. And I don't know if you know Shiner. I had the drummer in for an episode, and that was the only record that he's like, we'll just talk. It's the greatest record ever. We'll just talk about that. So we talked about it a bunch, and I really sort of thought that I had, with all of my years just kind of hovering in classic rock land, I thought I knew most of the Elton John. I was so blown away by how amazing that record is. I didn't know Candle in the Wind was on a 1973 record because it got super huge in the weekly countdown in the late 80s, and so I thought it was a new song back then. I had no idea the musicianship of Nigel Olsson and Dee Murray on drums and bass. I mean, just like world class. And there's hits on there. There's some couple funny, curious tracks, but really for me, I've seen that movie too. Sweet Painted Lady, Dirty Little Girl, All the Girls Love Alice, and Social Disease are just phenomenal. And I'm not trying to slight any other tracks on the record, but those really, really, really just, left me kind of bug-eyed and blown away. But how did this record land in your lap?
Music education, self-education process. I finished grad school, and I felt pretty solid about where I would look. The hip hop side of things and trying to educate myself as an MC. And honestly, in that regard, if you listen to the stuff I was putting out in 2012 and 2013 and listen to what I put out in late 2014 it's drastically different because of this education process and actually informing myself and allowing myself to think differently about how I write. I wanted to listen to 100 greatest albums of all time list that wasn't hip hop heavy. So I went to Rolling Stone.
Okay.
And I still haven't gotten all the way through that list.
I was going to say, holy smokes, how did you do that?
Still haven't gotten through it. And Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, I think, was in the 70s or the 60s on that list.
Okay.
Which surprised me when I listened to it because I was just... all the Girls Love Alice is like probably one of my favorite songs ever. It's just such a masterpiece of a song. But I had somehow never listened to any of that record except for Benny and the Jets.
And Saturday Night, It's All Right for Fighting. Had you not heard that one either?
It wasn't something that I recognized.
Sure. Okay.
Immediately.
Okay. Or opening track, Love Lies Bleeding, Funeral for a Friend. You had
I hadn't. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I hadn't. I'm pretty sure I've heard them in passing, but not something that like
intentional, mindful listening. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So it was really inspiring to run through that record. And this was at this time I'm listening to, I think it's early 2014. I'm at Cerner Corporation. I'm in the office, kind of just lollygagging a little bit, listening to this record. And it's just like my whole nothing else exists sort of thing. I'm just listening to this album like, oh my God, how have I not?
Are you guys hearing this?
It was kind of magical.
Cool.
And for someone who doesn't really follow a lot of rules anymore, especially from an artsy genre standpoint, that was really impactful. Because that's not the idea of Elton John that I grew up with. You know, I just thought of Elton John as like a piano player who sang. And
It totally.
is fully expansive. I mean, it's rock, but like it's kind of a fully expansive experience of different sounds and vibes. So that's why that one was a really impactful listen. I almost put Tommy by the Who in there because that was the same thing. I'm like, yo, this album is ridiculous. And that was one where I hit up like all my white friends from grade school, and I'm like, how could you not make me listen to this album? Because I knew that Tommy existed because of them. But
Tommy's the like opera-ish one though, right?
Yeah.
That one, you know, I haven't spent a bunch of time intentionally and mindfully listening to the Who. I know a lot of Who, but I own a copy of Tommy on cassette that I bought, and I put it on, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. But that was when I was in middle school or early high school. I haven't revisited, but it was pretty impactful for you.
Yeah. I love operatic albums that are opera. Right, storytelling, and it's that concept, but you know, without the big, you know, the big arias and whatnot.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, that the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was a standout from that.
I mean, it's
experience.
So, have you revisited it any time recently, or
this week because we were I knew this was coming out, but I actually haven't. I forget everything I put on this list, but I haven't listened to, I think, any of those albums in a while.
Okay.
I don't remember what all is on there, but.
Next we'll move from 73 to 06 and Lupe Fiasco, Food and Liquor, which I didn't know what to expect, but really good and
incredible. Right?
Every time I listen to a record that I didn't know and I enjoy it, I'm like, fuck, because the list it just keeps going and going and going. I mean, we'll talk a couple more of your records, sort of the same situation, but I mean, this dude, really fun. Wasalu Muhammad Jocko, Chicago, 1982. Frontman of a rock band, Japanese cartoon. It's like, okay, yeah, that tracks. But also two clothing lines, Righteous Kung Fu and Trilly and Truly. Loved clarinet player Benny Goodman, wrote poems eventually. And it was written by Nas. He heard that supposedly, and like hip hop, that's the lane I belong in. And then to get sort of to the concept of this record, I think he talks about food and liquor being like good and evil.
Yeah.
And food is the good and liquor is the evil, and trying to balance those ideas in your everyday life, I guess, is the concept there. But so did you say that you went to buy Food and Liquor intentionally?
Yeah, because I had bought The Cool.
Right.
And The Cool is one of the first album purchases I made as a legal human.
Okay.
I was, you know, not far into 18.
Okay.
And I just started college.
Right.
And then I had to go back and get the first album because people were like, yo, if you think The Cool is amazing, you got to hear Food and Liquor, which a lot of people consider to have gotten snubbed for a lot of Grammys. Ludacris won, I think, a rap album that year over an album that like nobody really remembers, or like I don't even remember the name of the album.
Right.
And Food and Liquor was just sitting there. It's this phenomenal thing, but it had kind of a botched rollout and got leaked, so it didn't sell as much.
Bummer.
All that stuff.
Okay.
But by the album, every track on it for me is really impactful. But Hurt Me Soul really, really hit me. Just the way that he approached all these ills and things of the world, starting from a personal lens.
Yeah.
Where the first like 8 bars, he talks about his conflict with the word bitch in hip hop until he dated one.
Just gonna erase this chapter.
And just his willingness to look in the mirror a little bit lyrically, and just how beautiful that song is in general. And also Daydream, which he did win a Grammy for Daydream, talking about essentially navigating the projects, but from the lens of riding in a giant robot.
Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean,
there's hoes selling hoes like right around the toes, like.
So there's a chunk, I gotcha, into the instrumental, into He Say She Say, into Sunshine, which it felt to me like, oh, this is the core of this record. This is a really strong, like everything else can exist because of this sequence of tracks. Daydreaming, though, was one that felt it just because it wasn't right in that stretch, it was equally strong and really impressive. I mean, so the part, what is it, Food and Liquor 2, and it's got another sort of
the Great American Rap Album.
Yes, but also good.
I'd say not quite as good. I think he's like taking himself too seriously on it.
Okay,
a little bit.
Okay.
But a lot of strong tracks on there, and Braveheart from part 2 is still on one of my hip hop playlists.
Nice.
There are a couple songs that I will always keep on at least one workout playlist. One's Forgot About Dre.
Oh, nice.
And Braveheart's another one.
Okay.
It just really,
gets the juices flowing.
Yeah, and how he starts both verses, "May the Lord have mercy on my soul," and then just talks about a lot of stuff. But yeah. I enjoyed pretty much all of Lupe's albums to some degree. But
okay. Skip 4 years up. Backatown, 2010, Trombone Shorty. I, for as many records that people tell me about that I listen to that are amazing, I gotta revisit this, not just once, but also mindfully and not distracted and just background noise. So there's that list, and then there's another list that always seems to be hovering and waving itself in my face, and it pisses me off because it's full of really, really, really amazing records that I wish I would have discovered a long time ago. This record is like the tits for me. I mean, it is so it kicks so much ass. I'm biased because I tend to lean from time to time into that sort of funky jazz New Orleans neighborhood with a lot of my preferences, but this is such a good record.
It's so good.
So also another Troy Andrews, 1986, New Orleans. I mean, the level of celebrity involvement. Bo Diddley invited him on stage at Jazz Fest
when he was like young.
Yeah, very young. Went to school with John Batiste, mentored by Cyril Neville, part of Lenny Kravitz's horn section. I mean, and then he's played with Dirty Dozen, Rebirth, U2, Green Day, Warren Stanton. I mean, Pee Wee Ellis, Fred Wesley, Maceo Parker. It's just like, I mean, such a wild list of folks that to have played with, to have been inspired by. I mean, how'd this one wind up in your?
So Trombone Shorty and I have a long history, not personally.
Okay.
But, I'm rapping and I'm playing trombone. At this point in time, I'm thinking I want to be maybe the next J.J. Johnson, and I'm not taking myself seriously as a rapper at all. This is in high school.
Okay.
But I could rap very well. I dominate freestyle sessions and around in the courtyard in high school, and everybody knew I could rap. Being good at rapping,
Alabama.
actually, yeah,
Okay.
in Alabama in high school, like being good at rapping got me out of a lot of the trouble you would deal with being a huge nerd in high school. Like,
okay,
because it's like, no, this dude's a huge nerd, but he can rap his ass off, sort of thing.
Okay, nice.
And
don't mess with him, or he'll put you in one of his rhymes.
And like I had cousins who were star athletes, and some of them were running drugs through school, and they wouldn't let anybody do anything to me. Also, that's how people found out I could rap. Because when they found out I could rap, then they paraded me around, and then put me in a situation where like I had to bar out, and I was like, all right, and I did. And
nerves didn't get in the way.
Yeah, of course they did, but I still did it.
right.
But as a trombone player who rapped, I was like, I wonder if anybody raps and plays trombone. And I discovered Trombone Shorty on SoundCloud because somebody mentioned him to me.
Nice.
And this is, the Mobile area is 2 hours away from New Orleans, 2.5 hours. So Trombone Shorty was known for amongst, the celebrities that he played with and in New Orleans, but nobody else knew who he was outside of the Southeast Gulf Coast region.
Right.
So this is before, he inked the deal, anything like that. And he had more of a New Orleans bounce, like rap heavy sound on some of his stuff. Even though he was playing trombone, it sounded like, Master P or somebody had a trombone player on No Limit sort of thing.
Okay.
The first thing I heard from him, that was what it felt like. And so I was annoyed because I was like, oh, somebody's doing this already. I thought I had this novel concept. Turns out he's more of like a soul and, R&B singing guy with a trombone presence. But I've been listening to him for a while. So then when he started touring nationally, internationally, I was really excited for him. And then the Dave Matthews Band took him on tour as an opener.
They did? Okay.
Yeah, and they'd bring him out. So I'm just excited for this dude.
Those were probably fun shows to be at, and probably fun for Dave's band and him to jam together.
Yeah,
I think
I only saw like clips on YouTube of this stuff. I never went to one of them. So when Backatown came out, that was his major label debut. I just got it, because I was excited, and it was
so cool when you like love an artist and they put out a new record and you get it like in a timely fashion, and then it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, if you guys need any answers to anything in life, call me. I got it all figured out.
And not like obviously I'm not the only person to do this, but that time period, I followed a lot of artists from when they first were starting to break nationally to when they were, oh my God, this person. Most of them was on the hip hop side. So like B.O.B., Drake, Kendrick, Cole, like I was following all these guys from like mixtape drops.
Okay.
Logic. So I was just really excited to see him drop that I Made It record, and then it's an immaculate album.
Oh my God, it's so good. So we moved to we stay in 2010, but we moved to I guess another list for me is artists that I've sat down with and tried to listen to and just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. I went to a buddy's, like I went back to my college town, and while I was there, this buddy of mine just burned me this huge stack of CDs, and most of them, and this is 2004, so, and I'm in grad school at the time, so I would sit at my desk and plug into my put the CD into my desktop and listen while I was doing whatever. And a lot of the CDs he gave me, I was like, it's not but I know for a fact I've revisited a handful of them recently, and they hit different now. Mm-hmm. But when he gave me that stack, there were a couple of Kanye West records in there, and the only memory that stays with me is that the one record was like 17 tracks long, and there's a lot of talking, especially on one track in particular. He's just like talking about himself minute after minute after minute, and I was like, what the fuck is this? But from your list, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, I was like, okay, I really haven't sat down and listened to Kanye since then. I mean, I'm sure I've heard his stuff and maybe not even been aware of it, but I was like, let's go. And this is a really wild story. I mean, I didn't know that he went to Hawaii and was like kind of trying to be off the grid for a minute. I guess he spent $3 million to make this record. Supposedly there's pieces of paper around the studio saying no tweets, no blah, blah, blah. People are kind of working around the clock, like including him. He's taking like little naps. Just a really, really crazy seeming story of producing the album during the sessions, during the recording. And it feels much more worldly and not quite so self-involved or what did I say? Egotistical, much less egotistical than. So tell me about this one for you.
This was the record of like my circle, my senior year of college.
Okay.
So really late junior year and the senior year.
How far away were high school and college? I mean, same town? Okay.
Oh, no. 4 hours.
Okay.
So
but
Tuscaloosa is a couple 100 miles north of the Mobile area.
Okay. So junior, senior year.
And it's really unfortunate to see where Kanye is now, especially with
where he's being talked about all the time. Where is he right now?
He's been on some anti-Semitic stuff.
Right.
He's like very, very like black conservatives. Black conservatives do exist, but there's like a lot of anti-blackness in what Kanye West is doing right now, saying right now. And he's been on this journey. Kanye West has always been an ideologue and a bit of a narcissist, and he's transformed popular music twice. Like his output, with like between his first 5 albums. You're probably talking about Late Registration,
okay?
Because there's a bit of talking on that record. And there's a bit of talking on College Dropout too, but like I love both of those albums.
Okay.
I'm really a fan of Kanye's like first 5 or 6 albums.
How many is he up to, like 10?
Yeah, I think he's up to like 10.
Okay.
10 or maybe more than that. I have to count them in my head.
Sure.
But this one was 5. And it's like a perfect amalgamation of the greatest parts of his previous albums.
Interesting.
And it's so collaborative, and it's like the least egotistical he is. But I would call Not My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy probably the first perfect album I've listened to. And I'd say that between that and The Pimp a Butterfly, those are the best 2 albums of that decade. That top 3 would include I think 21 by Adele.
Okay. For Kadesh Flow's perfect album.
Yeah, and 2 of those came out in the same year.
Right.
So
right.
But it's just a masterpiece of an album. There's so much that's happening orchestrally and from a production standpoint, and some of the best verse. There are, I think, 3 different rappers featured on the album who many would argue delivered their best verses in their careers on that album.
Really?
2 of them are Rick Ross and Nicki Minaj.
Okay.
You could argue there are a couple of others you could argue about, but definitely Nicki Minaj and Rick Ross. Rick Ross's verse on Devil in the New Dress is just like probably one of the only times I've ever heard him be that thoughtful, because normally he's just kind of a bit hedonistic or talking a lot, just talking a lot of noise.
Okay. So you think they like mentally were getting up for these appearances, those 2?
There was stuff that, from my understanding, Kanye just wasn't going to accept. And and he kind of demanded like the best out of everybody working on that
think
project.
DJ Premier gave him a bunch of stuff and he didn't use any of it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love that guy. Like, that hurts. But it's not my record.
And it was kind of like a soundtrack of life thing for that point of time in my life, but also just a really immaculate album, and hearing how high art, how hip, like that was I think the first time I heard hip hop and thought this is high art,
Yes.
And that was very impactful to me.
Sure. Rick Ross, Nicki Minaj, Kid Cudi, John Legend, Elton John. And I just poached a few names from a larger list. Yeah, I mean, if you found yourself this person that you super, super deeply love has been in a coma for 20 years, and one day they just wake up, and immediately it occurs to you that you still deeply love this person and you want them to be in your life on whatever, but they've never heard of Kanye. Like, how do you describe to them who he is and what he has done? I mean, what did you reinvented music twice? What was the
trajectory of pop music? He's changed basically
it twice.
A really anecdotal way to put that is, so I have a sync licensing rep for music synchronization on like television and film and whatnot. What a lot of music supervisors want from indie hip hop artists that gets placed on television, a lot of it just sounds like old Kanye. And what we now call mumble rap, and the trend of like auto-tune rapping and singing, there's a bunch of stuff that it's not that Kanye invented any of it. It's that like 808s and Heartbreaks was like this, at the time people considered it a letdown of an album from Kanye because he went a totally different direction than anybody expected him to go. But now that's like what's dominating a lot of hip hop. This like drippy, sing-songy, emo sort of rap sounds with heavy 808s and otherwise minimalistic production. That was Kanye.
It seems like, and I way uninformed, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like he, kind of opened some lanes or cleared some paths for some of that stuff to sort of take form and then eventually take off. Is that safe? Okay.
Yeah, and pop music has borrowed a lot of that, which is why I say that. The other one I should say twice. The other one's hip hop, because when Kanye was just producing, when he was producing for Jay-Z, him and Just Blaze basically started or popularized the Chipmunk soul situation that then dominated a full decade of hip hop, where you'd have those pitched up samples of like, there's a beat that's like but that was Kanye as a producer.
Okay.
So some of the most important records that Jay-Z did that literally impacted and influenced where hip hop was going were produced by Kanye, sort of thing.
Funny that you mentioned that. Def Jam and Rockefeller get production credits for this. I don't know that I don't know that I've ever seen a record have, because to me it sounds like both labels are getting credit and probably money for this record. I didn't know that labels collaborated like that.
That does happen.
Okay.
In this specific situation, I'm not entirely positive how that works.
Right.
But that does happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so one dude from Rolling Stone called it Pink Floyd-sized King Crimson sampling 68-minute prog rap behemoth in the age of shrinking budgets, which sounds like something of a mouthful, but it also sounds like it's kind of accurate too.
Yeah, it's huge.
I mean,
it's a huge sounding, just effort of a record.
Yeah, Monster, by far and away the best track I've ever listen to of his, and so that's probably this record and 2 records from that I got in '04. So a lot left to listen, and just on a first listen basis, but maybe the strongest track on the record for me.
Monster's pretty epic, yeah.
The album covers thing, he had an artist do like 5 different paintings, but the one that seems to be the record is like this picture of him with some kind of woman creature on top of him, and he's holding a beer, but it's on everywhere stream. It's blurred out.
Yeah.
But then there's all these other cool pieces of art too that are, I mean, it's a lot of energy and time and money to give to your album cover, which I mean, I'm a really, really big album guy. I think that, there's something to be said about having and holding the thing and looking at the art and reading the credits and so on and so forth. So the fact that he did give it that much attention, I thought was super cool. Runaway. I've seen people do like TikTok shit, I've never known what it was really until I was like, oh, I know this shit. And so then it's like, that's weird, man, that I'm actually listening to a Kanye track and realizing that I saw it first on TikTok.
Yeah.
So jump forward to 2015, and To Pimp a Butterfly was your final, and a real similar experience. I did a bunch of years in the restaurant business, cooking, chefing, and when I want to say maybe 2010 was when I first started hearing of Kendrick, and somebody brought in a record and played it at work. And I was just like, this is crap. Like, and it was just, he kept playing this one song over again, and the cadence is something like, he says a phrase and then he says drank.
Oh,
after
swimming pools.
Yeah. And I was like, this is like, people are like, this is Dre's new thing, and everybody's saying this is the next, and I was like, this is crap. And then I closed the chapter on Kendrick Lamar until now.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
It will be reopened. I've been needing to reopen it, but it just hasn't happened. But this record is beautiful. I mean, one listen in, which to me, you got to have sort of 3 full start to finish before you're even really allowed to say anything about it. But how'd this one land in your lap?
Yeah, so I'm very comfortable now after this year, this last drop, putting Kendrick in my top 5 all time.
Okay.
And I almost put Good Kid, Mad City, the album that Swimming Pools is on, on this, because there's a bonus track on that album called Black Boy Fly that is one of the few one of the handful of tracks I would say made me want to be a rapper.
Really?
Made me want to rap, like actually made me want to do it. And that was late 2011, I think.
Okay.
Around when the Black Materia thing I told you about. I almost put Black Materia on here too.
Okay.
But I didn't want to give you like too much material because we'd be talking for forever.
Yeah.
This one though is really important because aside from the fact that it came out the year that I started actually doing it, like it came out I think in March 2015. January 2015 was the first time I had played an out of town convention show. And in October 2014, I released an album called Gateways. I was like, I'm going to use this album to try to book anime and video game conventions. I had a spreadsheet that I made of every venue I could find in every college town within a 6-hour radius of Kansas City. And I just started, and I made another spreadsheet of conventions that I knew had live performances before. And I was reaching out to all these people. March 2015 was the first rap set I did in Kansas City. A lot of stuff was very important to me then, and then To Pimp a Butterfly comes out, and I was struggling with the concept of rules at the time of being like I'm a trombone player and a rapper. I should separate them, because I had this record executive from Interscope Records. How I was in that conversation in the first place is a whole different story. But I was having a conversation with like a VP of global marketing or something like that for Interscope Records, and just I wasn't trying to get anything. It wasn't like I'm going to sign you conversation. He was just giving me advice, and he was like, I think people are going to not know what to do with you if you present yourself as a rapper and a trombonist. That conflicted with a lot of things, because even this is a whole other thing. My junior year of college, I had dinner with Neil Gaiman, and I asked him about comics and hip hop and jazz, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like the rules are supposed to say you're not supposed to combine all these things, and I don't know what to do with that. And Neil Gaiman literally deadpanned me and was like, "Don't worry about the rules."
So the Interscope dude, like, not good advice.
Wrecked that completely. He temporarily, like, because the Interscope guy, that conversation I think was mid 2014.
Okay.
So hearing this album that essentially sounds like if Miles Davis and Dr. Dre did an album together, was really powerful for as a jazz fan, as a rap fan, as a fan of Kendrick. Having this guy who had the audacity to have beats that were co-produced by like Robert Glasper, and have so much really relevant social commentary. All that stuff. It's the only album I've ever listened to and literally just like cried.
Really?
When like the last Pac, that ends the album. Pac.
I was like, is that what they're saying? Because he was gonna name it
TPA
Caterpillar
to
sort of an homage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that meant he was a fan. And that they were even tight. I don't know.
He I don't think he knew him, but he's carrying West Coast hip hop. He's
okay.
Like
of course.
Of course, carrying it, and he was the guy. I remember watching a YouTube video of a concert where he's rapping and like Snoop and The Game just ambush him on stage, and in a good way.
Okay.
And they're like, this is the guy carrying the torch,
right?
And all these legends come out on stage, and he just breaks down and cries, and everybody
for real
him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
When was that?
This was in like 2011 or 2012.
Okay. Damn.
So like he's carrying it.
Sure.
And that that interview had it was vaulted. Nobody had really heard it. Hadn't been published.
Really.
And he found it and then chopped it up. So like you realize you get to the end of the record and he's reading this poem throughout the record, and you realize he's reading it to Tupac. He's reading it to like Tupac's ghost, and then this footage that he found, they were able to chop it up. So it's like sounds like a totally relevant right now conversation that's happening.
Sounds like a conversation or an interview or something.
Yeah.
And it's so you get mostly like 3, 4, 5 minute track lengths, and then that's the closer. 12:07 I think it is, and it's like really kind of a monster song for half, and then the second half is this conversation. And I assume where I left off was I must have been mishearing, because he wouldn't have been just saying Pac.
Well, the very end of the track,
right?
Is like,
yes,
that's the last thing.
Yes,
because Pac stops answering him. So to me, it's like he still wants to get more from the greats, and he can't because they're gone.
Right.
And he's carrying this torch and this pressure, right? And that was just an overwhelming listening experience for me.
I bet.
And I just like broke down. That's literally the only time that's ever happened. In an album listening experience. But that was also I felt like it's okay, because I'm only a few years younger than these guys.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm a late bloomer as
Sure.
far as the hip hop thing actually doing it goes. So it's like that felt like do whatever occurs to you artistically, just do it.
Yeah, man.
And right after that, like the year between that album coming out and listening to it and feeling like released to do that, and that following March, a few things happened that literally changed my trajectory.
Okay.
And I really felt like part of the inspiration for that was the experience I had of hearing To Pimp a Butterfly. So first rap set was a little after this album came out. I brought my trombone on stage, played it, soloed over. I opened up my beats, soloed on some stuff I was rapping over. I didn't know how that was going to work out.
I mean, giving me anxiety just thinking about it.
and this is over beats. This isn't with the band.
Sure.
I was the butt crack of opener for this show. Nobody knew who I was in that situation except for a few people who had seen me freestyle at cyphers for rap events.
How was it received?
I lost their minds.
In a good way. Okay.
Yeah. And I tried to keep all the rap stuff secret at Cerner, but I have some YouTube videos that done some numbers, and one of the people on my team had discovered my YouTube page and shared it with like the entire org.
What?
So
me with good intention shared?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't get any heat?
No heat.
Okay.
And then like 40 people or something like that from the org came to the show. So, and I was like the super opener. And so these people came, they bought shots, they bought drinks, they turned up for my show. And then not long after I got done, most of them left, and the show ended up being a bit of a dud.
Oh, shit.
So I looked really good.
Yeah.
So that was the first rap set. And then a few months down the road, I think that December, Eddie Moore, who's kind of a kingmaker here in Kansas City, piano player, composer, just released an album. Just released a really remarkable album.
Nice.
Actually, like a couple weeks ago, maybe.
Okay. Eddie Moore.
He used to have these. He used to have a group called the Outer Circle, Eddie Moore and the Outer Circle, and they'd do this event called Fresh to Death, where they'd play their songs and then they'd feature an artist and do arrangements of their songs. And he featured me. And at that point in time, people in the jazz community knew that I was a trombone player who had just moved here, and people in the hip hop community knew that I was a rapper. Eddie Moore putting me on his platform, which was a very vibrant platform at the time as far as like people really came to these events.
Cool.
That was when Kansas City people found out that I was an MC and a trombone player. And then at this point, the Mega Ran guy I mentioned, he had added me to a collective of people called the Nerdy People of Color Collective.
Right.
NPCC. That's a double entendre because non-player characters are also NPCs. And people of color have been treated as non-player characters in traditionally nerdy spaces, and we're kind of invading that.
Interesting.
So it's about representation and all this stuff that's really cool.
Wow.
So Mega Ran, and I'd never met Ran in person at this point. There's a giant event I'd wanted to play since college called MagFest. It's music and gaming festival. It's simultaneously a video game convention and a music festival that primarily centers around video game inspired music. And Mega Ran had 3 sets there, and he was like the only rapper for real that they booked. And he was like, I want to turn one of my sets into a showcase to get some of my people up here so you can see that there's more than just me. And then, everybody else who was huge in nerdcore at the time was like, nerdy white guy, safe, right?
Sure. Man, shouts out to him for that. I mean, that sounds super, super cool.
Yeah, this was life changing. So he was like, if you can get up here, I got a badge in the room for you.
Where was it?
This was in DC, and this was February 2016. So this is all in the year that I'm talking about.
Right.
So it's a Saturday night, 10 p.m. set. I have one song, and then I play trombone with some people on a couple other songs. 4,500 people, something like that.
Yikes.
And I played this song. People really went crazy over it.
Cool, man.
I think the performance was actually not great on my end in retrospect. But, you're your own worst critic. People really rocked with it. I wish my Cerner people were here. But people really rocked with it.
Cool.
First time I've ever played and thousands of people have their hands up, sort of thing. And off of that one song, I got booked at 2 of the largest anime conventions in the U.S.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then everything kind of started moving for me.
Cool, man.
So I know that's a bit of a long story, but literally, it was kind of like listening to the Pimp a Butterfly was like the last straw for me. A bunch of things happened in 2015 that made me, or 2014, that made me really say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this seriously. I really want to be an artist. I'm going to do the work. Believe. Yeah. And
if the minute you stop believing, the minute the air kind of goes out of the sail, and the chances of it becoming a reality, fade. Belief is, it's not the only fuel, but it's an important fuel in the trajectory of getting to where you want to go.
Absolutely. And that, I think, To Pimp a Butterfly was kind of the last straw. It's like, hey, this is the number one rap artist on the planet right now. This will be the number one album in America. And this is and a lot of people might consider it an experimental album. This is a huge risk. People in there, and I know hip hop heads who still don't like that album. They still don't like it because they just don't. That's not a sound that they can handle artistically, and it worked. And I'm like, why am I worried about anything? Why I'm just gonna be myself?
Yeah, man.
And a year of that led me to like this pivotal point that really, the MagFest thing, that was February 2016. That is launch point for me.
Cool.
And Eddie Moore and Eddie Moore featuring me on Fresh to Death was Kansas City launch point for me.
Okay.
So so that's a hugely important album to me.
Well, it also a pretty significant guest list. I mean, George Clinton, Snoop Dogg, Rhapsody. I didn't know that he had prior to this album, I guess, toured with Kanye, so they're tight. I'm assuming. Some dude from Entertainment Weekly called it a record that embraces the entire history of Black American music.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. And
I think that's. And I'm no expert on Black American music, but I feel like it's almost palpable when you listen. King Kunta, spooky, dope beats. I mean, there's just some kind of smoothness across the whole album that doesn't always have the exact same feel, but it's smooth. It's all smooth in its own right. It seems almost unanimous that this record is one of the best all-time hip-hop rap albums, but maybe pushed him above Kanye and above Drake, and he's kind of
this is what did it.
Kanye gets talked about more for different reasons, but I mean, it seems that he's kind of the 1A, and everything else. Not that he's legions ahead, or that ranking is even that important, but for somebody that's not quite in the spotlight as much as at least those two guys, I mean that makes me happy for him, because it means that he's sort of successfully carried that torch.
And he's way more grounded. This is a bit hyperbolic, what I'm about to say, but I think Kendrick is simultaneously what Tupac was supposed to be and what Kanye was supposed to be.
Oh, wow.
Supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to be.
Sure.
In that, he doesn't get everything right. Like, I mean, he's human. But he's always pushing hip hop culture forward, but he's also all of his albums are pushing a questioning thought process forward. Like, it's problematic in the way that he did it, but in this album he released this year,
Kendrick?
The album he had released this year, he has a track where he's addressing homophobia and transphobia in the hip hop community.
Okay.
And through his personal journey. And the way that he does it is definitely, he can handle the criticism and is well warranted, but it's also probably as hyper masculine as some of the cultures that have come out of redlining and institutional racism that built things like the gutter, so to speak, and project issues. It's like kind of the only way certain people are going to get it. And it's kind of a bold move for like the biggest rapper on the planet to do that. But every one of his rappers was doing that. Swimming Pools, for example, they picked it out as a hit, but it is really a song about alcohol abuse.
Oh, for real.
And if you listen to it within the context of the album, Good Kid, Mad City is really kind of like a short film.
Interesting.
And an album, and he's unpacking a lot of trauma from a storytelling perspective. And he, at this point in time, he had gotten jumped, and so his homies are like getting him lit as a comforting self-medication sort of thing. And they're like, yo, sorry, it's like, yo, give K-Dot the bottle. He just got drunk. You didn't get jumped. Like literally in the cutscene right before that, he's like, yo, you'll be all right, bro. Drink this. And then Swimming Pools comes on.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
You'd have a lot of fun with that album.
Okay.
It's a classic, but
I really liked Institutionalized. It's just incredible. I didn't hang in with hood politics like I thought I was going to, because the keyboard riffs and the guitar licks to start the song, super wheelhouse for me. I was like, oh yeah, and then he just walks away from him, and it's kind of just a straightforward rap track after that. You Ain't Gotta Lie, so smooth. I mean, and Mortal Man, we talked about. It's the monster closer with the 12-minute runtime and the conversation. But we've kind of gone past the time.
I noticed. Yeah.
So a couple more for you real quick. The best place to get to, if someone wants to listen to your music, is it your Bandcamp?
I would just say Google me.
Google you,
because
okay.
I'm on everything.
You pull up there's a whole thing, full page.
Yeah, just Google Kadesh Flow.
Kadesh and then Flow. Okay.
Yeah.
And same is true if somebody wants to pick their social media platform of choice to follow you. For just Google you and find it that way too.
Everything's Kadesh Flow.
Kadesh Flow, Instagram, Kadesh Flow, TikTok, even. Okay. So with all of these, I know we hardly know each other, but it's really exciting to hear some of those things that you're highlighting as far as your path and your trajectory and things happening for you. In 2032, what's it gonna look? Best guess, what's it gonna look like?
I mean, it really depends. So assuming that we're not in some kind of world war or climate crisis negativity, I expect to be playing a lot less, but playing at a much higher level every time I do play.
Okay.
I expect to be selling out larger venues on my own merit. I expect to be doing a lot more international shows, doing international jazz festivals. I expect to have way more music that's on prominent television and film stuff. I expect to have film scoring credits to my name. Cool. Some of this stuff is in process already, by the way.
Nice. Good for you, man.
And I expect to be doing all that with a family.
Okay.
But generally speaking, I definitely expect to be living abundantly from my art. And I've ventured out into a few other verticals from this, because hip hop is a springboard. I think it was Donald Glover. He said, "No rapper just wants to rap. Rap is like the gateway into entrepreneurship for a lot of people who come into hip hop."
Lupe Fiasco,
Lupe, Kendrick, Drake. Honestly, everybody at the big level, you see these people becoming moguls of some sort. At the more local, regional level, you see a lot of rappers, local hero rappers, either start storefronts or end up, because hip hop has such a culture and social justice bend to it. You see a lot of local legend level guys end up, heading up or being development heads for nonprofits and whatnot.
Right.
So, it's a pathway. I didn't, like I said, I didn't leave my fintech trajectory to just be a local musician.
Right.
So there's a lot I expect to, like 10 years from now. I it's hard to call, but I expect a lot of this to be at a way higher level.
Sure. Now, let's say, however it happens, but tomorrow morning you wake up and you and everybody that's part of your family and your fold and your fabric, there's more money than anybody can spend before everybody's long gone. Mm-hmm. How different does your life look? If you don't have to worry about money, you don't have to think about an income, everything's taken care of. I mean, is your day-to-day relatively going to look the same still?
From a process perspective, I'd say probably yes.
Okay.
I would say the big difference that magically ending up with a boatload of money would make is things that I see happening in the next 5 years becomes stuff that happens in the next 6 months to a year, because I have way more to invest in my art and my moves. Because a lot of this, right now, the difference between me consistently packing out, say, the Ship, and me packing out theaters anywhere I go is investment money.
Right.
Or having is funding, because overhead for merchandising alone.
For your merch?
Yeah. Anecdotally, so Mega Ran's been doing this for longer than I have. And, we'll do shows together at these conventions, and I have a limited inventory relative to him, where he's got like this awesome merchandising game, and I'll do a few hundred to maybe barely break $1,000 or so, somewhere around there in merch, and he'll do thousands of dollars in merch at like sitting right next to each other.
So you're talking like live in-person transactions,
yeah,
not just somebody going to your site and ordering a t-shirt.
Yeah, even though that is part of it. This is just anecdotal.
Okay.
Just him having more options, and obviously he's more popular than I am, but the options for people to spend money on things mean that people are going to spend more money on things, right? So, and that's just one little section. That's just one little example. So, like merch overhead, channel marketing dollars, video AV content, because being able to put together good audiovisual content of projects so I can book a festival with a clear example, and then that's also content, right? So then that's reels, as TikToks, right? So even if it was like $100,000 or $10,000, that's just faster growth. And I'm doing this because I want to do it.
Yeah.
This isn't like a, I left a lot of equity on the table.
I mean,
to take the leap that I took and eat dirt for 2 years before I actually started making money.
I mean, I can't imagine that your undergrad or your grad experiences were free of charge.
I had a full ride.
Oh, for both?
I floundered. So my last year of grad school, I'm in a lot of debt for.
Okay. But that's part of that is also, I mean, that was how you got to where you were career wise, fintech, financial technology, right? And so like there's a spend, whether it's time, energy, money, et cetera, to get you qualified, and then you're in there and you're earning a decent living, and that's all of that together is what was left on the table to go this direction, right?
Yeah, and if I had stayed on that trajectory, I'd be very, very far paid off right now.
Okay.
But undergrad I had a full academic ride.
Nice, very nice. Well, we need to get you out of here, but thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for saying yes to a virtual stranger and then sticking to it. Like, you could have said yes and then blown me off, or set up a time to do it and then bailed for whatever reasons. But here you are, and I'm very thankful for it. And I'm excited to see what's next for you.
Yeah, thank you, Blair. Thanks for having
Kadesh.
me. And I love having conversations like these. I have to try to set as many boundaries as possible with them, because I actually love talking about stuff like this, and I don't really get to talk about myself a lot, or I don't just do it. I don't just like tell people my story. So it, there's a lot of time. I have a lot of long, kind of intricate answers for things. So,
Perfect.
Perfect
for the guy that's choosing to do long form in the shortest attention span in human history.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, man.
But yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.